asking me, literally, what's the truth versus what the narrative says?
It's an inside job, for sure. Don't be foolish that all of a sudden they broke in 15 different places in the fence and nobody showed up for 8 hours.
I'll be honest, I'm a little bit nervous about this one. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is live right now, and thank you for tuning in to Jay Slay, Made in the USA. I'm going to dive right in. What you're going to hear today, guys, is an incredibly important and factual account of USS Liberty survivor Phil Tourney, okay? There's two parts to today's interview, two parts. Part number one is pre-recorded. Phil and I recorded this a couple of days ago. There's a bit of a hot mic on my side, so I apologize for that, but you can hear it perfectly clearly. And we're going to go through his story, and we are going to do some Q&A. And some of these were all questions provided to me by my audience that knew that I was going to be doing this interview. But luckily, due to a technical difficulty, it cut off. So I said, Phil, we lost the last 30 to 35 minutes. Will you come on live on Saturday for a live audience where we will answer their questions in the live chat? So if you're on Rumble, that's the only place this is being put out right now. I'm going to be watching the live chat throughout the recorded interview portion. And as we're talking and questions pop up in your mind, put those up in there. I'm going to select a few of those to ask him when he comes on live. The pre-recorded session is about an hour in length. So if you do want to miss this first part, which I hope you don't, come back in for that if you already know this story really well. Second thing I'd like to say before we jump in is, as you watch this today, look inside. You know, if this is one of those things that are one of those topics because it has to do with Israel and something Israel did to us, which ultimately makes Israel look bad, and that bothers you, it causes something in you to bristle or to want to turn away. Just ask yourself this: as you listen to Phil talk, as you listen to me talk, do we seem like two guys with hate in our heart toward a people group or any particular country? Or do we seem like people who have found out something that we really didn't want, especially him? He didn't just find out, something happened to him and to his men, and the implications of it being covered up, not talked about, ignored, and guys like us get called names for putting it out there. And this is not a one-time event. This has happened over and over again throughout history since that time, and even before that time, which we'll talk about today. But as you're listening, if his words and my words convince you that we're being honest and authentic and telling the truth, then go to those pastors, those politicians, and those pundits who may never have talked about these issues or any of the others. It's always just to support Israel or just to support the Jewish people for any number of reasons. And ask them, are you aware of this? And send them this video. It doesn't have to be antagonistic. Ask them some of the questions that have come up in your mind about it. And if they are either too naive and they don't even know about it, then they don't have any business talking about geopolitics, period. If they do know about it and they say, no, that's a conspiracy theory or that's a lie, well, then you have a decision to make. Because maybe they are more married to the narrative or a profitable story that they have told for a long time. Maybe they're more committed to that than they're committed to actually the truth themselves. So, and then then again, if they're naive and you show them something new, they could also change course and be like, I never knew that. Time to dig in. And that's what I hope for you today as we go on this. I'm very honored to have Phil Tourney on. Here we go right now. Oh, one last thing. I think I already said it. Share this video. Share this video. Thanks, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me today on Jay Slay, Made in the USA, where we explore truth, expose deception, and inspire courage. Guys, I'm really excited about today's show. We're going to have Phil Tourney, the USS Liberty survivor and the founder of the USS Liberty Veterans Association. I cannot wait for you to hear his story today. We also have, in the second half of this show, we're going to have audience questions. Many of you have written to me with your questions that go deeper. They penetrate into some of the religious issues around this topic of the USS Liberty's attack. The attack on the USS Liberty. as well as Zionism and its impact on politics and everything else. So, quick overview before we bring on Phil. Phil Tourney is going to provide an eyewitness account of Israel's 1967 attack on the USS Liberty. While patrolling in international waters in the eastern Mediterranean Sea on June 8, 1967, an unarmed intelligence gathering vessel confronted an enemy they never expected, Israel. In an unprovoked and vicious attack, unmarked Israeli jets pounded the Liberty with cannon fire, rockets, and napalm, while the American crew tried to make sense of what was even happening as their friends and shipmates were blown apart by the Zionist state's weaponry. After the jets murdered 9 helpless Americans, Israeli motor torpedo boats, or MTBs, moved in for the kill, firing machine guns and launching 5 torpedoes, with one hitting its mark, instantly blasting apart 25 Liberty crewmen. The MTBs continued firing upon the damaged ship, hoping to hit the boilers, as those aboard were unsure if they were on their way to a watery grave, as the massive hole in the Liberty continued to let tons of seawater in. Expending their ammunition, the MTBs retreated, and a new armed adversary approached the stricken vessel, Israeli troop helicopters with commandos aboard to finish the job. All the while, the nearby U.S. 6th Fleet, hearing the Liberty's cries for help, launched fighter aircraft, only to be recalled by the White House. It's an incredible story, guys. I can't wait for you to learn more about it today and what it means to tell the truth about it, just like the Bible tells us to do. Phil Tourney, so glad to have you on. It's an honor. Thank you for coming on.
Well, it's my honor, Jeremy. Thank you so much for the opportunity to spread the truth about our great ship USS Liberty and our supposed ally, the Zionist State of Israel.
Well, it's been quite an awakening for me. I told you off camera that when you begin to tell the truth about this subject, especially as it relates to Israel, which everybody in our government calls our greatest ally, you will pay a price. And I know that you probably first and foremost of anybody I could think of that's paid a price for it. I know we're going to get into some of that today. Let's go back to that time, you know, the theater of war in the Mediterranean at the time. Kind of give us the lay of land prior to the attack.
Okay, we originally docked up in Abidjan, Africa. We got emergency orders to go to the Mediterranean. We didn't know why or what for. We didn't know a war was going on. We'd only been there a few hours. We were going to get some little rest and relaxation. This is our 3rd cruise. That was aboard the Liberty. We got emergency orders, get everybody back on board. You know, we got to go right now. If you got to leave somebody, leave them, but we're going. They did get everybody back on board, and we set sail for parts unknown. We ended up in Rota, Spain, and picked up 3 linguists, actually 4, 3 Marines, which 2 of them were killed. They were all Russian and other languages, and it very well could have been Arabic or Israeli intelligence, you know, messages or whatever. But that was their job. And the other guy was Alan Blue. He was a civilian. He worked for CIA and NSA. He came aboard, and he was also killed, by the way. But we went from Rota as fast as we could go, Jeremy, into the Mediterranean to get to the Sinai Peninsula.
Okay.
All the ships were going the other way. We was the only one going that way. And we knew something big was going on. We finally found out that the war had started on the 5th. And we arrived on station on the 7th of June. And when we got there, the Israeli recon aircraft with the Star David on the recon aircraft would fly over our ship from port to starboard, from stem to stern, from stern to the front of the ship. And they would wave, and we'd wave back at them. It was Israelis. We thought they were our friends, and we supported them because, you know, they were our allies.
Now, real quick, when you're talking about the war, would this be the 6-day war that was going on?
Right. The 6-day war started on the 5th.
Okay.
And we got there on the 7th. And we had requested a destroyer escort before we entered the area, not once but twice. Because when we found out we was going into a war zone, why wouldn't you send another ship with us? Because we were an unarmed ship, basically. All we have is 450 caliber machine guns. And they refused that twice. You don't need an escort. You don't need anything. You got the American flag as your shield. Proceed on and do your duty as you were ordered to do, which we did. Here comes the evening. We get up the next morning, do our regular deal, go to breakfast and eat chow and all that stuff, and take showers and go to work. And we saw more Israeli aircraft coming over, which really made us feel good because we could see the bombs going off on the Sinai. A lot of them. It was black, black, black.
So you had zero reason to suspect anything wrong with Israel, flying over this much or being so involved right there where you were?
None at all, Jeremy. In fact, we were happy to see them.
Okay.
Because if we didn't have any backup, any Navy ships with us to help us, just in case, we felt good about the Israelis because they were friends. I thought that our government was communicating with them, kind of watch these guys, be careful with them, and whatever. But that wasn't the case.
Right. Okay.
So we went to general quarters in the morning, secured about, 12:15, 12:30. General quarters is a drill you do for putting out fires, chemical drills and such like that. I was in an impregnated suit, pretending like I was washing off chemicals off the ship. And it was so hot that day. Beautiful, beautiful, bright, sunny day. Our flag was flying, a brand new flag, 5x8 from the mast. You could see it visibly from anywhere. We had GTR 5 on the bow, port and starboard, and USS Liberty clearly marked on its stern,
right,
black letters. So we secured, and the sound powered phones weren't working in the forward gun mount. And I was assistant on-scene leader in that job. In other words, I was second in command of damage control. And I just left the gun mount because the sound power phones were working. I got a guy up there, David Skolak. About 30 seconds later, I leave. I get back to my workstation. I close the hatch, and all hell breaks loose, an explosion right outside my workstation. And that's where the motorboat was. They tested every day, the motor whaleboat.
Okay.
Make sure the engine works. And I thought it blew up. So I was going to step out the hatch and see what was going on. The chief grabbed me by the nape of the neck and said, "Man, we're under attack."
Yeah.
Then we heard bing, 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 bing. General quarters, everybody man your battle stations. So I headed down back to the front part of the ship, got my gear on, and those two men I just left in that gun mount were blown to bits. They were gone. They were vaporized.
Wow.
They were gone. It was a bloody, bloody mess. I'm telling you, Jeremy.
And at this point, it's aircraft that are shooting, correct?
Yes,
okay.
Aircraft. And this went on for about 25 minutes or 30 minutes.
Okay.
We got a message out to the 6th Fleet, thanks to Terry Halbardier. They hit every tuning antenna on that ship. Everything was taken out. All of our 450 calibers were taken out. Every antenna on the ship was taken out in a matter of 3 or 4 seconds on the first or second pass. It was all gone. So Terry strung a long wire to an antenna he had taken offline because it wasn't tuning. He got it back on and got a message out, Rockstar, under attack by unknown jet aircraft. Need help. And this went out to the 6th Fleet, and it went as far as Vietnam. In fact, all over the world it went. People heard it. The 6th Fleet heard it. Admiral Tully from the USS America sent aircraft immediately to come help us. They were about, 35, 40 minutes away. They were immediately recalled by McNamara.
Okay.
Secretary of Defense. So they return him back to base, to the ship, and then they went to the next highest command because they didn't like the order. So, of course, that was the president. And they relaunched again off the America. Captain Ingan and Captain Tully relaunched the aircraft to come help us. LBJ got on the phone. He says, I don't give a GD about a few dead sailors. I will not embarrass my ally Israel. And I've said this over and over again. How did he know who was attacking us if we didn't?
Now, when you say that's what he said on the phone, did you hear it? I mean, how do you know?
Well, it's proven from the radio operators that heard it.
Okay.
That recalled the aircraft from Johnson.
Okay.
So that's how we know. I mean, we didn't know that at the time. Hell, I thought it was World War III.
Yeah.
And nobody could come help us because they had other things to do.
If somebody in that moment would have asked you, Phil, who's attacking the ship, what would your best guess have been?
Egypt.
Okay.
Or Jordan.
And I know we're going to get here toward later on in the interview, but that was kind of the play, right? That ultimately, so people can have this in their brain as you're telling this story, the false flag was really to get America in a war with Egypt, correct?
Absolutely. That was the whole plan. And it was set up not just in a few days, it was probably done in a year in advance.
Okay.
To get us in that position and to put us where we were. This wasn't just a simple spur of the moment deal. This was a pre-planned, precise attack.
Yes.
As one of my shipmates said, it was a perfectly executed attack by the Zionist state on a flagged American ship.
Yep. Okay, we'll continue with the timeline. After Johnson radios in, we're going to protect our ally.
Right, and so the aircraft were recalled back. We were left out there alone to have the Israelis do what they wanted to with us, and they did. The attack. Let me put it. They hit every watertight door, and every antenna. The 4 gun mounts we had were useless in a matter of 25 minutes. So we were incognito. They blinded us basically, except for that one transmitter, and here come the torpedo boats, and we could see the Star of David on 3 boats. We thought, oh, thank God they're here, because the Arabs are just kicking our rear ends.
Yeah,
I mean, they're killing everybody. Bloody parts on the deck, bones, pieces of bones, your own shipmates blown apart. And here come the torpedo boats. We thought they were there to rescue us, and they were there to sink us and kill us all.
Yeah.
So the attack lasted another hour and a half with the torpedo boats. They fired 5 torpedoes at us. Think about it, 5 torpedoes. And one did hit the starboard side in the communication spaces where all the spies did their work.
Now, you say over the course of an hour and a half, could they have gotten off? I mean, 5 torpedoes is a lot of torpedoes at one boat. I get it. But over the course of an hour and a half, could they have fired more? Or what were they doing during all that time?
Well, they were circling the ship using their 50 calibers and cannons.
Okay.
To maim and kill everybody aboard that ship.
Unbelievable.
That they could.
Okay.
Yes. And so here we're listening to the starboard side. It seems like we're going to roll over when the torpedo hit, and it just stopped. But believe me, it picked the whole ship up out of the water, Jeremy.
Unreal.
Just picked it up, brought it back down, slam, 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 and then it started going like this. Then it stopped. By the grace of God. All power go to Jesus Christ for that. Because nobody else came to help us but the good Lord. And our own country didn't come to help us because they wanted to sacrifice us all for the benefit of the Zionist state.
Yeah. And
that's a fact. And, it's just the way it is, the truth.
Yeah.
And I can't explain any better than that. But so The torpedo boats left. We thought it was over after all they'd done to us. And no, they sent troop-carrying helicopters over to finish us off. They had, I believe, 3 helicopters. One was on the main deck, right by me on the starboard side. I was outside trying to collect the wounded still, because there were 174 wounded, some so badly you couldn't even look at them. It made you cry.
Yeah.
Really, that brought you to tears. And this Israeli Marine put his foot on the skids. I thought they were going to rope or ladder down because they were going to scuttle the ship. They were going to kill us all and scuttle the ship. And I was standing there. I just gave him the bird. I said, I'm gonna die here anyway. I might as well let him know how I feel, and I did.
Yeah.
He gave me the finger back, and then they hovered for a few more seconds and took off. Why, I don't know. I guess the gig was up. They confessed too early that they attacked an American ship by mistake. And our government said, oh, yeah, it was a mistake. Yeah, sure. They're so sorry. But our government didn't come to help us for 17 hours. They left us out there for 17 hours.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even send a Piper Cub over to see if we were still afloat or okay.
Yeah.
So they didn't care. I'm not talking about the Navy. I'm talking about the higher-ups, Johnson and McNamara, and those clowns he had.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about, but not the Navy. They wanted to help us. It wasn't the Navy's fault, but they ever called back. I mean, they said, that's their duty. They follow the orders of the President of the United States, Commander-in-Chief. So that's what happened. And
unbelievable.
All night was just repairing bodies and operating on them. I helped in several operations. One of the men, Gary Blanchard, died as we were operating on him. And
tell me about the doctor. That was pretty moving. That he had been shot in the knees, I think you said, or injured in the knees.
Yeah, he was shot in both knees, Jeremy, and he had a life jacket on around his abdomen because the life jackets we had were they went around your waist.
Yeah.
And so he took it and turned it around and holding these guts in, and he stayed on those lakes for 17 hours operating on people and saving people's life. He did get the Silver Star for it. He should have got the Medal of Honor.
Unbelievable. Talk about a tough guy doing what you have to do. When these honors were given, the Silver Star, or I think you've even received some decorations for this attack, correct? But yet it's like something you're not allowed to talk about in government at the same time. So how did they, being the government or the military that was giving these awards, how did they describe it at the time?
On the awards, they described they were very descriptive about what happened, about the attack and everything, but they never said who it was.
Unbelievable.
My award's right up there, Bronze Star with a V, and it doesn't say who attacked us like a ghost attacked us. I wrote the Navy years back, and I said, hey, listen, just all I want you to do is put one word in there. Who attacked us? Israel. I just put one word.
Yes.
Israel. And I got the document here. No, we can't do that because once they're done, they're done. Well, that's BS. Once they're done, they're really not done because a lot of records get changed or reflected differently because of the circumstances.
Yeah.
But they would not put Israel on it.
Of course not.
No way.
Well, I moved you forward in the story there. Let's back up. So you've been operating along with the doctor on the wounded. Let's pick up right there because so the attack is over. There's no more torpedoes, no more bullets, right, at this point?
No.
Okay.
No.
Then what happens next? Who comes in to do cleanup or to debrief? What's the next part of the story?
After the 17 hours, the USS Davis came to our aid with the USS Massey. The USS America was several thousand yards off or more. They sent helicopters over to get the dead and wounded off that they could get. And this went on most of the day. And the crew from the Davis came on board to help shore up the torpedo blast, because on both sides of the bulkhead, they looked like balloons. Now, if those bulkheads wouldn't have held, our ship would have certainly sunk, because we couldn't have taken that kind of water on.
Were those guys on the Davis that were boarding your ship, were they confused? Like, what happened here? Who attacked you? Or did they know?
They knew, but when they saw the carnage, Jeremy, they were weeping.
Right.
They were actually crying and shaking their heads, but they did their duty and they helped us. And we needed their help. And
absolutely.
So they sent us to Malta for repairs, and that's 1,000 miles away. 1,000 miles away, when we could easily went to Crete, a Greek island.
Okay.
But no, they didn't want that, and they sent us to Malta, probably hoping we'd sink. But on the way to Malta, 2 days after the attack, a flag admiral, Admiral Isaac Kidd, and his underling, JAG officer, Captain Ward Boston, came aboard our ship to interrogate us and ask us what happened and what we saw, what we thought. Just raw human emotion is what it was.
Right.
And I was in a small group, 4 or 5 guys in sick bay. There was nobody else in there but us. The admiral walks in, and he takes off his stars, and he throws them on a table. It was a stainless steel table. It kind of rang out like a bell. And he says, "Listen, you guys, I'm just like your dad. Please, please tell me everything you saw, everything you heard." And we did, and told him everything. I asked him, I said, "Well, how come he didn't send help?" And I didn't know Johnson had recalled the aircraft or anything. And I said, "We were out there. Why didn't you send help?" And told him about shooting up the life rafts. They shot up our life rafts. We only had 3 left. They shot them out of the water. That's a war crime.
Yeah.
They dropped napalm on our ship. That's a war crime. I mean, just attacking the American ship on the high seas is an act of war.
And dropping napalm is just meant to just to burn people up, right? I mean, it's just meant to burn everything. God,
absolutely, Jeremy. That's exactly right. And they did that, and told him the whole deal. And he put his stars back on. He said, "Now I'm a flag admiral again. I'm not your dad." He says, "I want to tell every one of you SOBs," and he was right in my face, Jeremy. He got beet red. I'm not kidding. He looked like an orange. I mean, a tomato.
Yeah.
He was serious. He says, "Don't you ever repeat a word of what you told me to anybody, not even each other, not your family, especially the news media. Because if you do, I'll make sure you end up in prison or worse." And he says, "You know what worse means?" I said, "Yes, sir, I do." And he walked out, slammed the door, and left.
What's this admiral's name again?
Admiral Isaac Kidd.
Who do you think was controlling him? Who was twisting his arm, making him this emotional about you guys keeping this secret on behalf of Israel as an American admiral?
John S. McCain Jr. was the commander of Europe forces at that time. His son, of course, he got shot down in Vietnam. McCain's son, John McCain. But
yes.
Anyway, he ordered a cover-up. And that investigation was completed in 7 days. In 7 days, even before we hit Malta, it was done.
Unbelievable.
Case of mistaken identity. When an attack like this should have lasted at least 6 months to a year. Look at the USS Cole, USS Stark, and others that have been involved with the attacks. They were investigated thoroughly, and by a court of inquiry that cared, not a court of inquiry that was ordered to lie on behalf of the Israeli government and our government because they were in on it. They wanted us to die, blame the attack on the Arab states, mainly Egypt. They hated Nasser and get us into World War III. Our ship not sinking saved us from World War III.
Yes.
If we sink, SAC aircraft were already on the way, Jeremy, from Nebraska. SAC aircraft were already on the way before we got attacked. So what do you think was going on there?
Explain that when you say SAC aircraft. What are you referring to?
Strategic Air Command.
Okay.
B-52s, bombers.
Okay.
They were headed to Cairo to incinerate it.
Got it. Yeah.
We also had submarines under us. We had one Russian submarine and two American submarines, Amberjack and the Jackson.
So your ship was truly going to be used as the harbinger to begin World War III. And by the grace of God, that torpedo hit the red iron beam and the ship didn't quite go under.
She didn't go under. It was like the hand of God. It was right there holding us up. You know, nobody else came to help us but the good Lord. And I'll never believe anything else because just mere humans couldn't do that.
Yeah.
We were just his servants that day.
So going back to Admiral Kidd and the threat, did you receive further threats to keep your mouth shut? At any time in the general time frame of the attack? I mean, I know you've been told to shut up for decades, but I mean, after the attack, were you told again by any other authority figures?
We were told by our commanding officer and George Golden, he was my division officer, and his underlings. Just everybody shut up. Don't say a word. We got a big problem here. And I don't know what we're going to do about it. So, yeah, I was warned, and we weren't even supposed to have civilian clothes aboard ship. It was against the rules. But they said, do not go over on the beach in uniform. You must wear civilian clothes.
Okay.
We don't want anybody knowing you're USS Liberty people. But everybody in Malta knew we were the Liberty and we were sailors.
It's unbelievable.
Was
there a feeling of deep betrayal because you've just gone through this extremely horrible, violent, emotional ordeal, and then you're told by your own government to shut up about it, so they're in on it? I mean, it'd be like two kicks in the gut right in a row.
Oh, absolutely. And it was a kick in the gut I kept inside me for 18 years.
Okay.
I didn't speak about it. I didn't tell anybody about it.
Was that out of fear of you'll be thrown in jail or worse?
That was out of fear because hell, they just tried to kill us all and told us it didn't matter.
Yep.
There's no telling what they're going to do. Yeah, I took it seriously, and so did everybody else.
Yeah.
But like I say, I didn't say anything for 18 years until an article came out from Stan White, Master Chief Stan White, in one of my local newspapers in Denver. I was in Denver at the time, Colorado, and talked about the Liberty. And I felt like the whole world was lifted off me, man, because I could start talking about it. And I had remarried, divorced my first wife and remarried about 10 years after that to Lisa. I never told her I was even in the military. And when she saw that article, she says, "Are you kidding me? Why didn't you tell me you were in?" I said, "Well, I was ordered not to, and I didn't want to bring you into it." Well, she says, "Well, I'm into it now, so let's go for it."
Yeah.
She's been my rock ever since.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. You've had her to rely on throughout this time. So you 18 years later, you begin to tell your story. It begins to go public to some degree. that would have been when? That was 68. That would have been almost 1980, around that time, right?
82 in that area, 81,
So
yeah, something like that.
So that's I'm glad you said that. So 82 is the year I was born. I'm 42 years old right now. And I did not know about the USS Liberty until probably 2 years ago, because I was uncovering other aspects of Zionist Israel. We can go through those later, but this was another one of those. So there for 30 or 40 years, people like me really didn't hear about this story. Even though you could find it if you researched it, people didn't even know to research it. So tell me about the time period between you starting to talk about it publicly and the Candace Owens show, leading up to that. Because I feel like that was when it really, it kind of came unsealed nationally and even internationally.
Yeah, it did. We've been blessed with like-minded people that just want the truth.
Yep.
And no more lies. Just come out with the truth. And of course, Candace and Jake, and there are just so many of them. Jake Shields, of course, I said that, but
yeah.
Jocko Willink, former Navy SEAL, and Jimmy Dore and Clayton Morris, and on and on and on. Just a bunch of good people.
Yeah.
That want the truth.
So they've been willing to blow the lid off of it, which is awesome. But I'm talking about prior to that. What has life been like as someone trying to get the word out and being the president of this Veterans Association, but yet it's not getting it? Like, how did that feel? How was it being suppressed? Were you being threatened during those decades as well, leading up to this great unsealing?
Yeah, well, we didn't really get a lot of coverage from anybody. I mean, there was a few books written, and stuff like that, but it really wasn't. Expressed to anybody until Jim Mattis wrote a book called "Assault on the Liberty." I don't know if you've read it.
No, I have not.
But it's one of a crew member, Jim Mattis. He was a lieutenant then. He was also badly wounded, but he wrote a book, and it was a good book, and then it started bringing people together, and our organization started, USS Liberty Veterans Association. And so that's when the other veterans started getting together and everything. We started writing Congress and thought we were doing the right thing because we thought our Congress would help us in some form. But I got a stack of people that I'll just read a short one here from.
Yes, please.
This is from my congressman, and this was in August 4th, 1986. Dear Mr. Tourney, thank you for your July 11th letter. I can appreciate your interest in the USS Liberty matter. I do not believe, however, that another investigation would be successful. Sincerely, Patricia Schroeder, Congresswoman. Right here.
Yeah.
And, she, there's never been an investigation by our government. Never. They say there's been investigations. There's never been an investigation.
Yes.
And we get that. I got letters from Teddy Kennedy. I got letters from many, many congressmen and senators. They all read the same thing. It's already been investigated.
It's when it comes to this topic, there's a few topics out there that the left wing and the right wing will agree on. And whenever they do, usually there's something really nefarious they're covering up. We saw it with COVID for a little while. We saw it with 9/11. We've seen it with the USS Liberty. And if it seems to me that on the left wing, you've got a lot of the AIPAC and Zionist money. And then on the right wing, you've got some of the same, definitely, but also this religious component. I want to play a quick video clip that I know you're aware of that I think is a great explainer of right-wing smart pundits that know better, but are trying to protect the narrative. And I think it's what you've dealt with for a long time. Let's play this.
So from America First perspective, why do we give $3.8 billion to Israel, which is more aid than we've given to Africa, more aid than we've given to South America, and more aid than we've given to the Caribbean combined, which is home to 1 billion poor people, especially when they deliberately attacked the USS Liberty in the 1970s.
That is incorrect. Do not peddle conspiracy theories in our event. That is not acceptable. Do not say that.
Okay, Dean Rusk disagrees with you, and he was the Secretary of State at the time, but that's fine. And then the second part is also, you have the Apollo incident in which they illegally stole weapons-grade uranium. The CIA has reports on this.
Anti-Zionist, anti-Semitic
No, I'm not
rhetoric.
anti-Israel. I'm just asking from America First perspective because it's not in our interest. They act against our interest.
Remember the short question part?
Sure. I mean, how is it in our...
How does that make you feel, and what would you like to say to Charlie?
Well, yeah, he's a smart guy, and there's no doubt about it. He's come a long ways, and he's friends with Trump and many other people in Congress. But Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro come from the same cookie cutter. They repeat the lie over and over again that it's a conspiracy theory. They called me a conspiracy theorist.
Yes.
For saying the truth.
Can I explain the USS Liberty incident? Sure. So the USS Liberty incident is very frequently used by anti-Semites to suggest that Israel deliberately targets American ships and then pays no penalty. So both American naval records and Israeli Air Force records suggest that there was a case of mistaken identity wherein USS Liberty was in the Mediterranean in a place they were not supposed to be. Israel thought that it was an Egyptian ship and shot it. That's the actual full story.
There's no conspiracy to it. We can prove it. We got all the documents. We got eyewitnesses to it. But they won't talk to me because I'm an eyewitness, and they can't put me in a corner. They can't tell me what I didn't see.
Have any of those guys, Phil, whether it be Shapiro or Charlie Kirk or any of the others that have called it a conspiracy theory, have any of them ever reached out to you and said, I'd like to get your side. I'd like to talk to you?
No. And I've over and over again, I've asked Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro to explain their position and let me explain mine. I mean, let's see how the cookie crumbles, but it's going to crumble on my side. I'll tell you that, because you can't hide what they did. And they say they paid all this money and everything. They didn't pay anything. The United States government paid $6 million for a $40 million ship. And they farmed out the rest of the money to the most seriously wounded, which they well deserved. God bless them for that.
Yeah.
But most of us received a couple of $100 and told us to sign it, say you'll never, sue Israel or the United States. And here's your $200 and sign it.
Wait, say, I want to hear that again. So you were asked to sign a document and given $200. Who was this from? And what did the document say?
Came from the United States Navy, the State Department.
Okay.
Of course, I signed it gladly. I was done. I wanted nothing to do. I wanted, what they did to us. I mean, you just that's something you don't forget, but you want to forget it. And it festered inside me for all those years, and finally the association started. And as I've told many people, I haven't shut up talking yet, and I'm not going to. In fact, I got a hit piece put out on me a couple of days ago, quoting all this stuff.
Was that what you sent me pre-interview? You sent me a link to an article. Yeah. I've not had time to read it. So tell me about that a little bit. What does that article get into? And I'll put a link to it, to your X post in the description of this video. Yeah,
well, what it goes into basically is he calls me and Candace and others like me, probably you too. You're in trouble now,
I know where this is going. Yeah.
But, they call you anti-Semitic or Jew haters or Nazis because that's their modus. That's what they do when they want to shut people down. Prove you're not an anti-Semite. Listen, man, they did all the murdering.
Yeah.
I'm not really angry at the Jewish people. They were lied to just like we were. The government lied to America. What I don't like or support is the people that support the idea that it was a mistaken identity. Israel paid all the money, and they didn't. They got a sweetheart deal from LBJ, and when he got elected, when he took the oath, when JFK was killed.
Yep.
By Oswald. Oh, by the way, those records are supposed to come out today. We'll see if they do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, really. It's going to be interesting. But that's what they do. They try to run you down, tear you apart, and eat you up, and think you'll just go away. And this is too important for the USS Liberty survivors.
Yes.
They're still living. And we're a small group now, Jeremy. There's probably only 45, 50 of us left, if that many. In fact, one of my dear friends is in the hospital now. He's blind, and it's just hard to see your shipmates get that. He's old. Yeah, I'm older too. But I still got my wits and I still got my voice, so I'm going to keep on doing. I'm the same age as Trump.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of smarts.
Yes, you do. Well, for those that are wounded or going to pass, they can take comfort knowing about this story, that it's really getting out there in a big way, in no small part to your efforts. So thank you again for that. Let's go ahead and dig into some of these questions from the audience. They wrote some really good ones here. So in your interview with Candace Owens, you mentioned a FOIA request records, and that this was, you did that interview with her about 2 to 3, maybe 4 months ago. And at that time, there was a FOIA request. I can't remember exactly what that was in reference to, but you'd said that the results were going to come out in a few days. What was that? And did anything come out?
Yeah, that was a FOIA request done by a friend of the USS Liberty, Michelle Kennigan, wanting the FOIA requests for the files into the attack.
Okay.
And we've been doing this for 2 or 3 years on this same case. And I think the very day I was with Candace, or the day after, I found out that our request was denied because of national security interests.
Sounds a lot like the Epstein files.
There you go. 58 years ago, Israel attacked an unarmed American spy ship in international waters on purpose to sink us. And that's all they got to say, because that's what happened. And our government was in collusion with them. That's the treasonous President Johnson, a treasonous Congress then and now, because none of them will touch it because of Israel.
Yep.
Like Thomas Massey said, they all got AIPAC handlers.
It's unbelievable.
How many Russian handlers do they have? How many Congo handlers do they have? How many Irish handlers do they have? By the way, they're picking on the Irish president or leader of that country right now for being an anti-Semite. They're going after Trump over that.
Yep.
And they're going after. There's no end to it. The USS Liberty survivors get the brunt of it all because they call us a bunch of liars and conspiracy theorists. We were there. You weren't there. We saw it.
Yeah.
We know what happened. We got the documents. So shut up.
There you go. Well, you won't be called any of those names on this show, unless it's in an endearing way.
There you go.
So there's some dots that can be connected here. You had JFK wanting, now they weren't known as AIPAC at the time, but there was a group that became AIPAC that he was saying they have to register under FARA, as a foreign agent, and they didn't want to do it. So that was one fight he had with Jewish interests. Another, he had a definite fight going on with David Ben-Gurion at the time about, I think, stopping their nuclear testing in Dimona.
Yes.
So that's going on. He gets taken out. And Lyndon Johnson immediately opens all that up, doesn't make them register under FARA, gives them the nuclear weapons and capacities that they're after. They get all of that. And then shortly after that, you got the USS Liberty incident where it's proven that they're trying to get us in a third world war. I mean, you've connected those dots, haven't you?
Oh, yeah. We've connected them pretty darn good.
Okay.
And it's pretty easy to figure out. Pretty easy to figure out what happened. I've watched a lot of photos about JFK on the airplane and everything, and there's one photo. He's just smiling like a catbird, and there's a guy in the back. I noticed it yesterday. He was winking at Johnson.
Yes.
And it was like, hey, man, we did it.
It's
We got it
incredible.
done. You're the president. And you probably saw the same thing. I don't
I've
know.
seen it is such an evil thing to be able to do that, knowing you've just killed anyone, much less the president of the United States. But I've been amazed at what humanity is willing and capable of doing.
It is savage what they can do to human beings, and what they did to the Liberty crew. And I'll tell you, this is nothing but a land grab in '67. We go down, we get in a war with Egypt or Georgia or all of them. And who's the benefactor of that? Israel gets all the land.
Yep.
The land they didn't get in '67, they're getting right now.
Yep.
That was the whole plan all along. And
thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
So I mean,
the war started again.
I know. I think it was yesterday, right? They
Yeah.
stopped the ceasefire, and yeah, the October 7th attack to me is very similar. You know, they allowed a sacrifice. Sometimes they'll allow it of their own citizens. Sometimes they'll do it to America. They always blame it on the same groups of people, and we go fight their wars for them and give them everything they want. And if they get embarrassed, we're told to shut up about it or to look the other way. Right.
Right. Well, you said that very well, Jeremy. The security around Israel is impenetrable. You can't get through it. A small kitten
I know.
couldn't walk up around that gate and not be detected.
Yeah.
They were left. They were left. They probably knew they were coming anyway. They set them up to come on in.
Oh yeah.
Do what they did. I think it was described a lot worse than it was. Now, any human life or anybody taken, I don't care if it's a Jewish life or any other life, it's not good. But what he did, what Netanyahu did to his own people, is sinful.
Yeah.
Because it was a set up deal, just like the USS Liberty was a set up deal. And
well, you mentioned land grab. You know, you're aware of the Greater Israel Project and all the land area that they want. And what's so amazing about that too is a lot of those Jewish elites are not even believers in God, but they still believe that God has given them this land boundary. I don't know if they're just using it because it tricks Christians into supporting them as well. But is that how you see it too? With this is all about an expansion of land, and they'll do anything in order to get it.
Oh, there's no doubt about it in my mind. That's exactly it. And do anything to get it. You've seen it happen all over again. I mean, come on, man. This is a little off topic, but I don't think it is.
Yeah,
you got women and children and broken men in Gaza that have no food, no water. They cut off their electricity. They've done this over and over again, and they're still bombing them.
Yeah,
they have nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. And think about how long this has been going on. The terror of these people here. I mean, I can't imagine this going on for that long.
Yeah.
Day after day after day.
Ultimately, it would create terrorism. You would eventually turn into you would want to create terror onto Israel, who's been doing that to you. And I think that's all kind of by design. I'm pretty convinced that a lot of our American politicians, I hate to say it, but they would love nothing more than an Islamic attack on U.S. soil, because it would further their agenda and their goals to do what they want over there.
I agree 100%, because that's the whole plan. Hey, America is going to back Israel. I don't care if they're right or wrong. They did it back in '67.
Yeah.
They did it back in 1948 when they made Israel a state, and it's been nothing but chaos in that part of the region ever since.
Yeah.
We didn't have any problem with the Arabs then. None. But we do now.
I know. Well, it sounds to me, because I think when you did the interview with Candace, you had some hope for Trump. You may still, but you said, I call on President Trump to listen to reason, to give me, to hear me out, not just you, but any of the survivors, and let justice be done and let the truth be told about the USS Liberty. So 2 questions here. One, has any president or vice president since Johnson reached out to you or any of the crew who would be in the know to discuss this? Any of them? That's question number one.
Yes, one.
Who?
Bill Clinton.
Bill Clinton. Okay. Tell me about that.
I got this from Bill Clinton in 1994.
Okay.
Dear Phil, I appreciate you taking the time to write, and I want to thank you for the material you enclosed. It's important to me that I hear the thoughts and expressions of people that care about the future of America and the world. Our nation faces many challenges as we prepare for the next century. I'm seeking the most initiative approaches to address those challenges. Thank you for sharing your ideas with me. Sincerely, Bill Clinton. He doesn't say a word. It's just a form letter.
It's boilerplate.
My God.
I mean Monica Lewinsky wrote that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. She probably auto-signed it, too.
Oh, my. I'm sorry that's the letter that you received from a president, but, I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense.
Well,
wow.
I'll tell you another story. We were at the Rose Garden. We were supposed to meet up with George H. Bush.
Okay.
And
this is the father.
Yeah, the father. Yeah. George H. And we were in the Rose Garden waiting for hours for him. It was hot. It was a hot June. And he never showed up. The old man was there with his uniform on, his Medal of Honor, and there was a bunch of us there, our wives and other survivors. And the president finally showed up in his limousine, and he stuck his hand out the window and went like this and waved and then left.
Mm.
And Brent Scowcroft and John Sununu came out, said, "Oh, the president's so busy, he's got so much to do." They invited us.
Yeah.
Then they snubbed us.
Yep.
Because he didn't want the press of having the USS Liberty crew there.
It's unreal.
I'm sure he had an APAC handler too.
Yeah. You know, all of this snubbing, though, that now that it's coming out and you're getting these big platforms to tell your story, it's almost a good thing, because now people that don't want to believe this is true, they have to believe it because of the weight of the evidence you're able to supply. Reading a letter that's from Bill Clinton that says nothing about it, it's, I actually think it helps.
It does. It does, because that's a continued cover-up by all of them. And I'm way back when, in the 80s, when I started writing them, and right up to this day, they say it was a mistaken case of a mistaken identity.
Yep. And
the only reason what they're referring to was a board of inquiry that took 7 days that said it was a mistaken identity, Jeremy.
Yeah.
So, and then they say that they've had many investigations about the USS Liberty. They're liars. Whenever you write Congress, be prepared to be lied to, especially when you, probably about everything. They lie about everything anyway.
Well, so you saying that, and I fully understand and I agree with you on 99% of the topics. I think you're right. Based on what you've been through, the kind of lies you've seen, and that a lot of our entire wars where hundreds of thousands of American lives are lost are based on false flag lies. Do you still consider yourself a patriot of the United States? And, I see you've still got a Navy banner in the background. I think even one of your kids is in the armed forces. Why would you even want any of that? Why would you want to have any association with that?
Well, I guess the best explanation is this. I grew up in the 40s. Well, I was born in 46 and grew up in the 50s and 60s. And, I mean, it was all about patriotism. All about patriotism, going through the Cold War and everything. And it just meant a lot to me. And even after the Liberty deal, I still love my country with all my heart. I just don't love our leaders because they're all crooked bums.
Yeah.
They lie repeatedly. They lie when the truth will sound better. So
Is your love of country related now more to the people of the good-hearted people of our country and wanting to protect and preserve their freedoms?
absolutely.
Okay.
That's exactly right. I don't respect or love the people that try to tear down our country, that try to destroy our country or hurt Americans around the United States. With whatever, who knows what's going to happen now with these wars going on still in Gaza.
Yeah.
And how many sleeper cells did they have here? I mean, there's 12, 15 million people here, maybe more that shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
You think there's a few bomb experts or terrorists somewhere?
I think it's by design, and I think that there's podcasters out there like, I hate to say it, but I think Sean Ryan is doing everything he can to drum up the fear so that when it happens, it all makes sense for us to go into further war.
Yep, I know.
So,
but you know who that war benefits? It benefits one country.
I know. The same one we've been talking about.
Right. The Zionist state of Israel benefits them only.
So prior to you even joining the Navy, it was the Navy, right?
Yes.
Okay. Prior to that, what was your thoughts? Because I mean, you were born in, you said the 40s, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right after the war, 46.
Okay. So you're born that the state of Israel's created when you're a toddler, but you're growing up with this country that's also growing, right? I don't know what your faith background was, what kind of church I don't know any of that. What was your thoughts about the state of Israel prior to you joining the Navy?
I had nothing but great respect for him because of what I thought was the chosen people. God chose them in the old covenant, not in the new one. Yeah, they're God's chosen people, but God saved us from God's chosen people that day to tell the truth. And yeah, I had nothing against Israel at all. I didn't have anything against them in the day before we got attacked.
Okay.
Nothing.
Did your church, I don't know if you went to church growing up, but did the religious people around you or pastors, did they preach that kind of a message back then of a very Charlie Kirk style of we've got to just bless the people that call themselves Jews today. We've got to bless that nation. Was that taught to you back in those days?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It was taught that Israel was our friend. We must bless them. They're God's chosen people. Well, I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not into that mood.
Did you, after the attack and once you were able to think about it in a rational way, once the emotions maybe settled somewhat, how did your theology change? Did you distrust faith institutions for a while? Tell me about that development, because I've seen in more recent years you've become friends with Chuck Baldwin and Rick Wiles, and I like those guys. I've talked to both of them. They have a very different approach to the old covenant, new covenant, as you well know. So tell me about your faith journey. That's what I'm asking as it pertains to your belief in God and as it pertains to Israel since that attack.
Since that attack, I unlearned everything I thought about in the Bible. And being on with Chuck Baldwin and I knowing Rick Wiles, he did a fantastic mini series on us, Sacrificing Liberty. I don't know if you've seen it.
I have. It's amazing.
It is. And no, I don't. I go to one church, and that's the church of my heart. I won't go to any churches around here because they preach the same thing, and I can't do that. I can't go and listen to that. And I'll talk to a pastor and say something to him and say, no, that's blasphemous. Not quite in those words, but no, my feelings about Israel in the Bible have changed so much. It's hard to explain. It was a great letdown. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
when you learn about what you thought you knew, you really didn't know anything.
Yeah, it was for me as well, Phil. I wouldn't say that I had to unlearn everything I ever learned about the Bible or Jesus, but I would say in terms of dispensational theology and that the modern day Jews, at least the ones that call themselves Jews, get to all of a sudden get a free pass where I just have to bless them no matter what they do. I've come to big time unlearn that. And it started with an incident. One of the things that really tipped me off was I said, man, if I'm going to support Israel so much, I want to understand the creation of that state. How did they get it? I wanted to get into the history more. And I learned so many things I was never taught at church. And a big one that parallels the USS Liberty incident was the bombing of the King David Hotel. They wanted their land. They wanted the British out of there. So they dressed up as Arabs. They go into this, and it was actually an intelligence quarters in the King David Hotel, kind of like an intelligence spy ship. They're pretending that they're someone they're not, and they take out almost 100 people, some Jew, mostly British, and some Christian. And, and it was to drive the British out of that area so they could take over. And I was thinking to myself, surely this is not what God would want to do to help them. And I found more and more incidents going through that creation of the state, which were parallel to what I'm telling you right now. And USS Liberty is another one of them.
Right. It is. Look at the Beirut bombings. I'm still looking at that one really hard.
Tell me about those.
Well, a bunch of Marines, I think there was 280 plus Marines that were sacrificed. The building come down, they were all killed. That was in, I don't remember the year, but that was very suspicious.
Yeah.
911 was suspicious to me.
No doubt.
Many other things are suspicious. If it's so easy, what are they hiding? Just like the USS Liberty. If it's so cut and dry, Congressman, President Trump, respectfully, sir, if it's so cut and dry, just give us the records. Don't hold them as top secret. You can't release them after 58 years.
Yeah.
If it's so cut and dry, just tell the truth.
That's right. Yeah. I'm at the point now. I mean, I've been a Trump voter, and I'm definitely, your typical red-blooded patriot, all that stuff. But knowing what I know that Trump must know about 9/11 and about these other things and Epstein and all that, and the USS Liberty, and seeing him either not do anything or slow walk it, it makes all of my, excitement about his administration. It's like, I watch the news. It's like looking at a phone, like none of it matters unless they're going to get honest about some of these really big things that have shaped our foreign policy, our geopolitics, the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people. If we can't be honest about that, then I could care less about, the government efficiency and other things. I mean, I hate to say it, but I just feel that way.
No, I understand totally. And I voted for Trump 3 times.
Me too.
And well, the last time I voted for him, I mean, who would want to vote for Kamala Harris? I mean, Jesus. But I wanted safe borders. I wanted all these gangbangers out of here, killing and raping like Lake and Riley and so many more beautiful Americans, just their lives destroyed, their families destroyed, and they're let in here. And Trump is getting them out. And I wanted national security first and foremost. But I see a war coming.
Yeah.
With what's going on in the Middle East.
Yeah.
And I just I see it coming.
Many others do. Have you? Well, I guess I already know the answer to that question. I'm gonna go back to my my list here because there's some really good ones. Did any of the survivors, along with you, defy the demand for silence early on, and what happened to them?
No, not that I know of. None of them did, because we were all alone. They separated us all, Jeremy, all over the world. They took the wounded to Germany. In fact, one of my dearest friends, Bill LeMay, they call him Mickey, he was blown up so bad aboard the ship, I thought he'd never make it. He's going to die. They took him to the America and got him to Germany, Bremerhaven. In the hospital, He was in a room with a bunch of other people from Vietnam, wounded people. They singled him out and put him in his own room and they told him, your name is no longer LeMay, it's Smith. And you know nothing about the USS Liberty. Don't you ever say a word about it. That's where they dressed him down.
Unreal.
Because they couldn't, they did it right then.
Guy's about to die and they're telling him he can't talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
It's demonic. I think Candace used a good adjective when she called it demonic. How much control do you believe Israel has over the United States currently?
Boy, I think they're. I think they got their thumb on everybody. I think they control us. I mean, I've said that before. How else could it be that Israel can murder Americans on the high seas and get by with it, and nothing happens to them? If it had been any other country, they'd been annihilated within seconds.
That's right.
Attacking an unarmed American or any American ship.
Yes, absolutely.
It would have been over for them.
All right, next question. Given their outspoken passion for Zionism, do you believe President Trump or Kash Patel will acknowledge your story or look into this?
No.
Yeah. What happened to the two different COs of the two different ships that gave orders to rescue the Liberty and were ordered to turn around and not do anything?
Captain Tully of the USS Saratoga, the mighty Sarah, he lost his command because he sent help twice. They took his command away. He was a decorated World War II fighter pilot. And he was a broken man. He came to one of our reunions years back before he died. He had throat cancer. And he was a broken man over that because he said, I tried to come help you guys. And he was crying. But they wouldn't let me. And it broke him. And Captain Ingen off the America, I, along with Tito Howard, he's since passed, I did a co-authored or co-produced a film with him, Loss of Liberty. If you haven't seen it, Jeremy, please watch it. It's on YouTube, Loss of Liberty. And I was going to talk to him with Tito, and he was a friend of Admiral Thomas More, my good friend too. We were all going to get together, and the day before we had the interview, he was killed in a glider crash with another person on board.
Okay.
Seems suspicious to me.
Yeah.
You got the captain of the mighty America dies the day before they're going to do a interview with me.
Yeah. Wow.
And Tito and Admiral Thomas More. I don't know how much you know about him, but he was one of the greatest admirals that ever lived. He was a good friend of mine. Really a good friend. And he said, he's over and over again, he said, I'll never believe the attack was a mistaken identity. It was deliberate. And he'd asked the Congress over and over again to investigate it. And he was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and they wouldn't do it. And if you need to read the Moore report.
Okay.
It's on our website, USS Liberty Veterans.org.
Yes.
And if I may say, USS Liberty Veterans.org, we're a small group that keeps people like me going from place to place if I don't do Zoom calls or whatever, so I can tell the truth. And, we need funds. If you want to donate or buy some articles from us, clothing or whatever, please do it. We're not asking for a whole lot. Just send $1 in or $5. It would do a heck of a lot to help us. USSLibertyVeterans.org.
Yes. Well, I'll absolutely put the link in the description. So, guys, that right there is where our previous interview had the technical difficulty and cut out. So I'm going to filibuster here for a few minutes until Phil comes on. I think he was having a bit of a technical difficulty on our end. But let me tell you guys something real quick for some resources. I think these would be great if you want to go deeper, and definitely if you want to be able to help Phil. Give me just a moment. So you'll see down in the links on this. No, I can't even find the links. Okay. The links I've included. Well, first of all, please share this content with those that need to hear it, especially those that speak with some authority about stuff in the Middle East and they're very heavily pro-Zionist or pro-Israel, but you never hear stories like this come from them. They could be like me, for 40 years of my life, excuse me, for 40 years of my life, I never heard about the USS Liberty. I never heard about the King David Hotel. I believe the 9/11 story for what it was told to me by both religious leaders and mainstream media that I respected. I just didn't have any reason not to believe them. So Phil's actually on now, but before I bring him fully in, let me just say this. You can buy Phil's book, Holocaust on the High Seas, at the link. All these links are in the description. You can support USS Liberty Veterans at ussliberty.org. I've included Phil Tourney's X account, and you can watch the full Sacrificing Liberty documentary if you want the full 4 hours. I've got it all in one spot at that link. And also you can follow me and get my stuff first at jslayusa.com. So with that, Phil, looks like you're in. Good to see you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Thanks, Jeremy. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, I thought we had a great start to the interview. I'm actually glad that we had the technical difficulty because now we can kind of follow up after having got to know each other, and the JFK files are out and all that stuff. So we got some things to talk about.
Yeah, we do. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, with everyone that has responded knowing you were going to come on, I would say out of 50 to 100 messages, probably half of them have said they want me to tell you how grateful they are for your long-standing, long-suffering fight in justice and truth for the men and of the USS Liberty, and for truth to come out. So we honor you for that, Phil. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate that, and that's a good, nice news to hear, and I really appreciate it. Thank you all. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, it's not going unnoticed. So I've got about 11 questions here, most of which came from the audience. So number one, this is something that I didn't know. Does audio footage exist of an Israeli pilot irrefutably confirming that he or Israel identified the vessel as American and yet continued the ruthless bombardment?
True.
So that audio exists. I can find that online?
Yes, we have that audio. In fact, it's on film that I co-produced on. It's on YouTube called Loss of Liberty.
Unbelievable. So with that kind of evidence, how then can the investigation or someone even today like Ben Shapiro or Charlie Kirk or any of the others, because there's far more than them, I don't mean to just pick on them, every member of Congress, how can they claim it's mistaken identity when you've got an Israeli pilot saying that he knew it was American?
Yes, he did. And he reported back to his station, his commanders, and said, but it's an American ship. But it's an American ship. You have your orders, hit the ship. And the consequences are well known.
Okay. So it sounds to me as though this is just a flat out cover up. There is no justification for it. It's just straight up. They don't care. They don't want to know, and they don't want the people to know.
No, they don't, Jeremy. But by the grace of God, we're going to get through this. And we're going to be victorious in our lifetime. That's what I pray for. I just want to be here to see it.
Absolutely. I believe it's going to happen. And you are absolutely gaining momentum. And when I say you, I mean truth. I mean truth about this incident and many others. Okay, next question. Did anyone after the Liberty event ever confront LBJ on why he was so worried about exposing the truth about the Liberty event? So was he ever directly asked?
Oh, I don't know if he was ever directly asked. I do know that for sure on film is McNamara giving an interview, somebody asked me about the USS Liberty. I know nothing about the USS Liberty. Yeah, I'm not going to answer anything. I know nothing about the USS Liberty. So we got that on tape too, on film.
Wow. Unbelievable. All right. The Jerusalem Post observed in 1983, here is a quote this is in 1983, so a year after I was born, and actually 1 year, I think, after you began speaking out publicly about it. It said, the real Zionists in the U.S. are not American Jews, but Christian evangelicals. And since these Christians feel that we are coming closer to a critical period in history, and they want the Jews to fulfill prophecies and thus hasten the second coming of their Messiah, the evangelicals affect 20 million people a day in America. This is a great asset for us and must be used as such. What are your thoughts on that quote from that article?
I really can't comment on that. I'm just lost for words. I get so deep into thought about one thing, and I didn't really pay attention to what it was all said. And I apologize for
No,
that.
hey, I'm Mr. ADD. I do that all the time. Yeah,
But
basically.
no, I don't do it on purpose.
I hear you, and I apologize to my audience. I've got a cold right now. It's a little hard to talk. I'm raspy, but we'll get through it. So if you don't mind, I'm going to read it again because the next few questions coming up are more religious in nature about Christian Zionism. And you know the Jerusalem Post, the periodical that's been around for decades now?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is from 1983, and this is a quotation from one of the articles in the Jerusalem Post written by a Jewish person. The real Zionists in the U.S. are not the American Jews, but the Christian evangelicals. Since these Christians feel that we are coming closer to a critical period in history, and they want the Jews to fulfill the prophecies and thus hasten the second coming of the Messiah. The evangelicals affect 20 million people a day in America, now much more than that. They are a great asset and must be used as such. So did you catch kind of what they're saying there about the American?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The key word is must be used as such.
Isn't that, it seems incredibly on point.
I know. It just, they got a plan, and they've had a plan for a long time. And they were really, really good at it. But, when the Gaza war started, things changed. The people of America to see this happening.
Well, I think a lot of people, your story among many others, people were, COVID created a lot of a desire for, and it woke a lot of people up into not believing mainstream narratives by either global corporations, global public-private partnerships, and global governments and national governments. So people stopped believing and they started doing their own research, and they stumble upon stories like yours. And then October 7th happened, and you see Netanyahu claim this is our 9/11, and people are already waking up about 9/11. So I think your point is well made, that was a day, and it wasn't about what happened that day as much as do people trust the story they're being told.
Usually the story is a little bit different than they'd like you to believe, but it's like, listen, COVID was a good example, and you brought that up. We were they treated us like sheeple. I mean, you couldn't do anything. You couldn't even give your grandma a hug and all this, and everybody complied. I didn't comply, but they had a plan, to control us, and it parallels exactly with what's going on in Congress to control our own Congress, and they've done that for years and years and years. In fact, they said we own the Congress.
Mm-hmm.
So
they
got a plan. We don't.
Yeah, and they still do own the Congress, no doubt about that. But they don't own the minds of the majority, or a growing percentage of the American people. And I think that's what we're after, is for that to continue. So right now, there's there's a lot more, as you've already discussed, going on in the Middle East with the wars. So how can you trust anything that's being said about it, knowing how willing our government is to lie for Israel? So do you trust anything that's said from the government in regards to the Middle East or Israel?
No, I don't. That's sad to say, but it's been that way for as long as I've been alive. Uh, Looking back on everything, learning what I have, and uh, the heartache that's gone on in that part of the world. Wars fought for Israel, and it's, no more wars for Israel, but we might be getting into another one, and that's what I'm afraid of because anything can happen now.
Yeah.
Anything. So
Yeah.
they're prepped. I guarantee those guys out there in those carriers are ready to go, and those destroyers, cruisers, they're all ready to go.
One thing that was said in the part that got cut off of our last interview, but I want to bring it up again because I think it's important. So, if I were you, it'd be very difficult for me to still call myself a patriot based on government lies and what they did to your ship and seeing it happen over and over again. But yet you still have some support for the military. I know that your either children or grandchildren are involved at some level. So how do you reconcile that to the audience and be like, man, I wouldn't have any my kids or grandkids anywhere near the armed services after what they did?
Well, my kids grew up with me, of course, and they knew about the Liberty because I was speaking up before they were born, and they knew all about it. And I told them the risks and the benefits, and if you really want to serve, that's up to you. And I said, because I'm not going to stop you. I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. So uh, one of my sons fought in Afghanistan. He was in the 10th Mountain, and he's losing his sight in his eye now. It's almost gone because of that war. And I
From
can't tell you
shrapnel
what
or
my other.
gunshot or what happened?
Well, he got it was a concussion from a rocket, and it his vehicle or wherever he was at, and the concussion just rattled his head, his brain, his eyes, and it got his right eye the worst.
Yeah. Mm.
And my other son, I can't tell you what he does.
Okay.
I mean, it's not appropriate for me to tell anybody what my son does. It's still active duty.
Sure. Sure. I guess the hard thing for me would be, and I'm not meaning to press you on this issue, it's just knowing like, okay, the reason we're in Afghanistan in the first place may not even be what we're told. So that would be a hard thing, as somebody that's experienced what you've experienced. Has it been a point of contention with you and them?
Well, my son, he knows who he's fighting for now. He was fighting for the Zionist state, but he didn't know it then. He thought he was fighting for America.
Understood. Yeah.
But he's smartened up and he's learned a lot. But he had
Yeah.
to go through war to figure it out, and now he understands me a little bit better. All of
Right.
them do.
Okay. Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. This is kind of a philosophical and theological question, but we talked about it on the phone. You wrote a book called Holocaust on the High Seas. The link is in the description. When we were on the phone after our interview earlier this week, I mentioned Holocaust and what that word, the etymology of the word, the background, what it really means. So a Holocaust this is from the Hebrew definition. It's a sacrifice to God. It refers to a burnt offering, a sacrificial animal that's entirely consumed by fire as an offering to God. And then later in English, the term was used as a still meaning a burnt sacrificial offering. Whether you're talking about the King David Hotel or the USS Liberty or any other things that they call Holocaust, do you think that there's some symbolism with the Zionist state where they're okay with sacrificing both their own and other nations, even people that support them and fight for them, obviously, as a Holocaust, a burnt offering with napalm and other things to further get a religious goal?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Yeah, it does. I caught a little flack over that name. but it's used so much. But if you use it, that's not good, you know.
Yeah,
Uh, but I'm glad I named it that. But
I am too.
and it's just I hope people read and the internet like what you guys are doing, man. God bless you for that because you are opening the world's eyes. Because people, when I learned about this social media, my son taught me a little bit about it. He says, "Dad, if you're ever going to go anywhere, you have to get on social media." So that's what I've been doing
Yeah.
and keep on doing it. But thank God for it because it gets around the world and people understand it's not the news you look at. Uh, that's the same thing. It's propaganda. It's just all BS, all of it.
Yeah. Well, there's a huge, what's the word? Believability crisis within legacy media and the old school networks and all. Huge, even Daily Wire, which people would have thought is a alt media to some degree, being on the conservative side, ran by Jeremy Boring and Ben Shapiro. Jeremy Boring, the CEO of Daily Wire, I don't know if you know this, he just stepped down or got fired a couple days ago. Ben Shapiro is doing everything he can publicly to get people not to care about the JFK files and what those said. I'm sure that we did our first part before the JFK files. Now those have come out. What's your take on? Have you read it? Have you seen any of the screenshots? Have you read anything on X?
Yeah, I have, and I haven't read the whole thing. I don't have to. I'll
No,
let
well, nobody
others.
has.
Yeah, yeah, I'll let other scholars do that. But they said no redactions, but there's redactions with this, and it looks like they're redacting Israel from any.
Yeah. Well, what has happened is so I know what you're talking about, and I want to get the wording right because it matters. On 10 pages, maybe more, there's places where it's the CIA they've released these pages in the past, and they had previously redacted anything to do with Israel intelligence, Mossad, anything that pointed back to that state. They had pulled it, and it said anything in these brackets, and obviously the brackets, but now they've unredacted it, but you can still see where the CIA, until I don't know when the last release was, they had redacted those names. And then there's other parts that talk about now that we have the Jew money on our side and either we or they get it done, then we can move forward with our goal. I'm getting the wording a little wrong there, but yeah, that was the only country or only intelligence service that they had been redacting all along until earlier this week.
Where do you think it's going to go?
Well, I think it's adding momentum to what you and I are already talking about. So me as a, pundit or analyst, I just think it's looking really bad for the future of American Zionism and even Christian Zionism. I mean, I've personally taken a lot of flack from my Christian community, but because I was speaking up on this even before October 7th, but after October 7th, that I knew this is an event. I call it a green light event. So it's a green flag. It's where Israel, their higher ups allowed something to happen. They green flag. Okay, go do it now. Do it now. Because those hostages have been the best leverage. It's been the best thing that could have happened for Netanyahu and his regime. So I don't mean to get off topic here, but I just think people are waking up due to things like this. And you just get kind of like you said about the audio of the pilot saying, we know it's an American ship. People find that out. They're sick of being lied to. So I don't know where all of it's going, other than you probably had 10% of the public or less that even knew about your story a year ago. Now you probably have 40% because of Candace and Jake Shields and a lot of smaller podcasts like mine. That's huge. So I just encourage more and more people to share all of those podcasts if they feel like there's people that need to know this. So that's my take.
No, absolutely, and everything ties back to the same people pulling the strings, and it's actually almost a horror story to think about it.
It's scary too for the Jewish people that have nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned, and I
Yeah.
want to honor this, you said earlier in the show, they've been lied to as much as the American people have. Um, so next audience question that ties in, what would Israel, need to do now in order to reconcile such a horrible offense or offenses? Because you tie in JFK and several other big ones. What can that nation do if the American people wake up and Trump can no longer pretend that these are conspiracy theories?
Oh boy. You know what I'd like to see happen? I
What?
would like to see just get the files out. Let's let everybody know what happened,
Okay.
and let the people of America decide what they want to do with it, and see what they think of people that would do that. Our own government's just as much to blame as Israel, because they got us into this mess.
They worked in cahoots, no doubt.
Oh yeah. So uh, we're working against two governments. You're working against Israel, and you're working against your own government uh, that doesn't want to tell the truth. And it's been almost 58 years now. If they don't release these, how damning is it?
Have they ever included the USS Liberty in the list of things they say they're going to release? I mean, they said they'd release Epstein. They kind of halfway. They didn't really give you anything, but they always mention JFK, MLK, RFK, 9/11 maybe, but they're not. I don't think I've heard them say the USS Liberty. Have they?
No, they don't even know what USS Liberty is. What are you talking about, USS Liberty? No,
Well, the higher ups
this is
know.
the higher ups. No, it's at the bottom of the ocean somewhere in a vault. I don't know,
Yeah,
but they're hiding the documents. That's for sure.
yeah, no doubt about that. What about, you mentioned prior to 1948 that we really didn't have problems in the Middle East. The Arabs were not giving the United States problems. Obviously, we're a more global, community. I kind of hate the way that phrase sounds, but that's what we are today. But what do you see as a potential answer? And you don't have to answer this question, but from a geopolitical and statewide level, prior to Israel being there, we weren't having problems over there. You said it's been chaos ever since 48. So do we need to relocate Israel? Like, think out of the box here. What's something that could be done other than just bombing the hell out of Gaza and West Bank and everywhere else and giving it all to Netanyahu?
Oh boy, I don't think there's anything in this world except Jesus Christ can change Israel or our politicians' minds or our Congress people or our presidents uh, not to back Israel's 100% or 10,000%
Yeah. Right.
uh, with weapons and money and technology. Uh, you know, there's nothing that I think there's nothing that any of us can do except the media we're on right now is just fire back at them and write them letters, but don't expect them to say anything to you. Even about the USS Liberty. And I've done it so much it just drives me crazy. Getting rejected day in and day out, getting letters from presidents and going up to see and getting kicked out of the Rose Garden. Our own president said he's going to. We were invited there. We just didn't walk in.
Oh yeah, no,
And
I know. Well, there's one thing I know. If you're talking about public, the power of the public, if you get a tipping point of the amount of the American public that know this story, identify with it, and have truth in their hearts about it, there's one thing politicians and elites hate, and that's to be mocked or ignored. And we saw it with the higher ups in COVID. At first, everybody kind of believed or they were scared.
yeah,
Within a year,
yeah,
people stopped listening to their doctors and they stopped listening to Fauci. And within 2 years, it's potential those guys are, I mean, they're not respected at all, almost across the board, almost. If that happens on this issue with Israel, it's going to change everything. So I do think that there's serious power in public knowledge.
Oh, absolutely. And the USS Liberty, in my view, is the spearhead, the red hot spearhead to bust this open, because we're alive. We can tell the truth. And you know, if I'll take a lie detector, you can do anything you want to me, and I'll put my hand on the Bible and swear and tell you the truth. And once the people hear that, I think, listen, it's bad enough to all the things they've been accused of.
Yeah.
But when you see it with your own eyes, what they can do and how vicious they were to us, well, what kind of people does that to people? I mean, my God, these men were young. I mean, hell, I was 20, and nobody really cared. Our own government didn't care. They wanted us dead.
Yeah.
And our world, the whole world needs to know the truth of what they did and what they've been covering up. That's sinful. You know, everybody says they believe in God. Well, if you believe in God, repent and tell the truth instead of lying.
Yeah, absolutely. So
That's what I want.
You were 20 years old. I've got 2 questions left, and then we're going to shut it down. When you're 20 years old, this event had just happened, and you have to sit down, you and some others, with Admiral Isaac Kidd, right? So you told that story earlier in this interview. If you could take a time machine and go back and talk to yourself right before that meeting and give yourself some advice about what's going to happen, what would you say to yourself? Would you do anything different?
I poured my heart out to him and told the truth, as we all did. No, I couldn't. There's nothing else I could do different in the circumstances. It's just eat it and say, hey, I'm sorry my other shipmates are dead. I still have survivor's guilt over that. Why couldn't it have been me?
Yeah.
But
do you
no, I
think
wouldn't do anything.
Do you think if you would have spoken up in that within a sooner time frame, that they would have made good on his promise of either throwing you in jail or killing you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, they scared everybody, Jeremy. And it took us a group to get back together to really try to tell the world, you know, and in the last 10 months, the world is starting to listen. Thanks God for you guys.
Yeah.
And alternative media. I mean, I respect you so much for what you do.
Well, thank you. All right. So what is one thing that you want the viewing audience that you would love to see people do or to come out of this? What's the ultimate goal for you, Phil, and for the USS Liberty crewmen that are still alive and with us?
The ultimate goal, and it always has been, is just support us any way you can. And if you want to write your Congress or call your congressman, please do it and say, hey, if this is so cut and dry, release the records, release the CIA documents, release the NSA documents, release them all. Because the Captain Boston, he was a JAG officer. Before he died, he said, we knew what the truth was. We know it was on purpose and all that. And before he died, he said that, and he did want to die and keep that beside him, but he did just denounce the 7-day investigation as a farce, set up deal.
Yep. Yeah. Well, we've talked a lot about truth on this show. The Bible in John 8:22, which I had just pulled up, says, and you will know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. And that's what we want. We want truth. We want freedom. We want the real stuff. We want a false freedom based on a bunch of false history. We want the real deal. So As I've told the audience all through the description of this video, no matter what platform you're on, you'll be able to find the links, everything from Phil's X page to the usliberty.org, to many other reference materials like the documentaries that have been mentioned. So I hope you will check those out. Let's continue to pursue truth and freedom. I love you guys as the audience that is pursuing those things. And Phil, we thank you once again so much for coming on for your fight, and we are here for you with anything that you need, brother.
Well, I appreciate that, you too, brother, and God bless you. God bless America, and let's try to get this squared away in my lifetime.
Amen.
You'll
We're gonna
probably
get it
get it in
done.
your lifetime. I want to see it. I got to see it.
Let's do it. All right.
Okay,
Thanks, Phil.
and thank your audience too. Thank you very much, guys. Have a good day.
Absolutely.